Welcome back to the AI-Driven Marketer. I'm Dan Sanchez. My friends call me Dan Chez, and it's been a journey in 2024 to master AI. And I wanted to take just a break to do a solo episode and give you an update on where I'm at with the show, where I'm at in the journey, and kind of what I'm looking into next. Kind of give you a peek behind the scenes of this bigger thing that I'm building now as I transition from just a solo consultant and podcaster to essentially what people are calling an AI agency. Like, it's kind of inevitable that I was either going to build a SaaS app, which I actually am working on that, or launch an AI agency out of this thing, because as I've learned to leverage AI more and more, I'm finding that people are asking for help building these things more and more. So I wanted to give you a sneak peek of what I'm building and how I'm helping myself and others leverage AI to automate a ton of their content marketing. But even for those who are really hungry, like, show you exactly what I'm doing so you can rip it off, like, learn from me, you can steal from me, and just do it all for yourself using the same tools. Like, I'm hoping to make it approachable enough that someone who's eager and hungry to learn and master the same things can go and just do it themselves and save all the money and not have to hire people like me to help them do it. But sometimes people want to go faster, not have to go through the 7 months of interviews and watching the YouTube videos and all that stuff in order to learn how to do it the hard way, even though there's a lot of value in that. If you want to go faster or have help building these things, that's what I'm starting to become available for as more and more people reach out for help with AI marketing automation and learning how to really leverage it to do more with much less. That's the goal of AI. Is to be able to do add a ton more value to your prospects, your customers, in order to drive more revenue for way less marketing dollars, right? That's the dream. And I think every marketer needs to figure out how to do it, because we're all stretched so thin that learning how to do a little bit of AI marketing goes a long freaking way. So in the rest of this, I kind of want to review where I've been, what I'm working on now, where I'm going. If you're listening to the audio of this, I'm going to be showing some visuals alongside. I'm just going to be going from tab to tab in my browser to kind of give you a sneak peek. It's like really behind the scenes. This is not a keynote or a presentation. I'm just going to dive into the nitty gritty and into the dirty stuff here. But if you're just listening to the audio, then just know I'll be doing my best to describe what I'm looking at as I'm going through it. But if you're on Apple Podcasts, pull open that video. If you're on YouTube, you're already watching this. And if you don't know where and you're already listening to it, go to AIDrivenMarketer.com and find this episode, and there's a video there too. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to look at is this stair-step kind of graphic that I made a long time ago. It's got 5 different steps from AI is a personal assistant, AI is process automator, AI is coaching, consultant and coach, AI is forecaster, AI is value creator. These are the things that I see coming over the next 5 years. And I feel like we're still very much on level 1. Most people are at level 1. I am now, and a few others that I've interviewed are kind of pushing into the process automation section. AI is still really, it's okay as a consultant and coach, but over the next couple of years, that tech will be developed enough to where it's a really good consultant coach. It'll be way better at forecasting because we'll be able to feed it more data, and coming up with original value is kind of a more vague and ambiguous one that I know is out there. But that's another episode to explain what that even is. So coming back down here, I want to talk about how I'm using AI, not to just use custom GPTs to perform one-off actions or even a step of actions, but how to set it and forget it. Kind of like with, I'm going to make a quick plug, my AI fundamentals course. If you haven't taken this course, take a moment just to go to AIDrivenMarketer.com/course, and you can taste what I'm talking about here. Like, put your name, your email, and a few pieces of information about this stuff, and every lesson will be customized for who you are and who you sell to. You'll learn a lot about the fundamentals of AI and how to use it in this first level that I'm talking about here in the stair steps, this AI's personal assistant. But you'll also start to see how I'm leveraging AI to create hyper-personalized content. And this is where the magic of AI really starts to get unlocked, and a few people are tapping into yet. So get ahead of the curve, start figuring out how to use AI to automate all your processes. Now, the one I want to show you kind of behind the scenes here is a topic that I've talked about multiple times, and I've had a bunch of different components of this, but I'm now starting to tie everything together to automate a big part of my marketing process, which is around podcasting. This very podcast is a pain to produce because there's probably like 100, 200, 300 little baby steps that have to be taken with every single episode. I've created a little chart here that kind of demonstrates the big chunks, but of course there's like 100 baby steps in between all these little chunks, and it's like overwhelming just to even look at. If you're listening, I'm looking at this big infographic of this like thing I built on Lucid Chart, where it starts off with guest books interview, and then goes step by step all the way from pre-production to production, post-production, and then distribution. And at first glance, you're like, whoa, that's a lot of freaking steps. And it is. But these are even just the big steps in order to go from guest booking interview to your podcast being published on like dozens and dozens of places, from podcast apps to YouTube to websites to social media to newsletter and all the different stuff. So if you want to, like, just pause the video and you can go through it. But I kind of want to walk through it step by step and kind of give you just a sneak peek of what it looks like. Starting with guest books and interview, it's like this is an AI. This is a software tool I use called High Level. I just embed into my website, which is an awesome website builder. There's a great website builder called podcastpage.io. That automates the creation of websites for podcasts. I love it. That's what I use for a lot of my websites now. But I embedded a high level, kind of Calendly type form, a book scheduling form. This isn't even AI. It's just normal marketing tech. It's just normal tech to automate stuff. And it has a custom form that gathers all the information that I'm going to need from the guest later on, like name, email, title, LinkedIn profile, URL, company website. And more importantly, like what podcast where they listen to podcasts at, because I follow up and customize the sequence just for them based on where they listen. And of course, what I can do to help them, how can I make the episode worth their while? Just a basic form built into the calendar app. And it's important because with every automation, you need to have trigger points. Like, what's the place that starts this? What are you already doing where, like, every time this happens, you have tasks that need to happen after that? That's where the magic can happen. And so as I'm walking through my own podcast production process, be thinking about the process you use. If you're doing product marketing, like, what's the step that comes before you even start the new project? Is somebody else kicking it off to you? How do they kick it off to you? What things do you need from them? There's probably a form someone needs to fill out somewhere in order to kick off the process with you. That form can also be used to move all the tasks down the line with AI, or sometimes with you, but sometimes a mix of you and AI, in order to automate way more of your own process. And this is possible with almost any marketing job. It can be done with ad creative. It can be done with email marketing, text message marketing, SEO. Like, there's so many different systems out there that you can just kick off with a form fill and then have AI take over like 90% of the work. This is what I'm doing with podcasting now, because I find with podcasting, it's easier to take one episode and push it into so many different formats because a transcript is so robust with information. The AI is so good at repurposing it and coming up with clips and video clips. It's just a gold mine of content for every single episode. So I can't really emphasize enough how powerful a podcast is. But now with marketing automation and AI, it's like it used to take a team of 5 at Sweetfish in order to do all this work, and $5,000 a month in order to do it. Now I'm starting to figure out how to bring it down substantially so you can get all this work done for like way less because you've automated all of it. Of course, there are still some manual processes that I'll talk about as we go through the process here, that you still want an agency to help you with, or just a well-documented internal process in order to have your team step into those places where a human needs to work with AI to get it done. But so much of it can be done with automation and AI now. So going back into my own process, a guest fills out a form, which kicks off the guest prep and reminder email sequence. Pretty typical for getting people to an interview. The part that I've injected in between is this My Showrunner app or custom GPT I made. Now, I've done a whole episode on this, so you can go back and check that out. I'll link to it in the show notes. But it's essentially, I'll kind of give you a little preview here. It is a GPT where you just paste in the guest LinkedIn profile, and it does a quick work of summarizing them. You tell it what you want to talk to them about, and it comes up with angles for you. You just pick one. It comes up with titles for you based on that angle and what it knows about your show premise and the guest. It comes up with some awesome titles. You pick a title, and then it actually comes up with a whole outline based on the template that it's already fed into the My Showrunner. So this is one that I actually already used for an interview I did with Audra here around podcast automation. Was been learning from other people on how they do it in order to better improve my own process. And it came up with the intro, the questions, the outro, even wrote the guest email. Now I've actually built this into a part of my high-level app where it just automatically emails the guest. Let me go back to the process. So my showrunner takes care of a lot of the actual thinking that needs to go into it. So you can get what used to take 60 minutes of work, just researching the guest, building the questions and the show outline, and gets it done in about 5 minutes. It saves so much time. Now I have a point where you could just fill out a form after this, then it takes care of emailing the guest for you, as well as then building what I call, or what the industry calls, a run sheet, a really robust checklist to do before the show with the guest, before the show with the guest, as you record, the run sheet that we already saw, the intro, questions, and outro, but also post-show checklists, and then what to do after the guest signs off. Imagine getting a run sheet that has all those different checklists in your email 30 minutes before every single episode. I wish I would have had this as a host for the 400 episodes that I've done to this date, but now I'm going to, because I've built it in my own system. I'm helping other people do the same. And again, it doesn't even need AI. Like, this comes up with the questions for you, but then it's just marketing automation to put all those things together, because what needs to be on the checklist. You're just scrambling to put it together every single time. Why not just automatically have it emailed to you before you need it with the questions already injected into it, right? Easy peasy. Zencaster is a major tool that just had an awesome update this late spring, coming into summer now. That automates a lot of the production and a bunch of the post-production, which I'm very excited about. You can see here it's where I host my podcast, but it's also where I do the recordings. Like, you can come in, join it in here and do a whole session, start the recording. You can see here's Audra's last episode I recorded, and it records it kind of like Riverside, but it's now Riverside is a one app that does recording, and Zencaster does it all, from recording, production, and hosting. So that's why I stick with Zencaster, because it just automates the whole process. But you can go from here, let me show you, to actually editing the whole episode and coming up with all the different formats you would need, and going into editing the episode even with text, like into script. Like, it's all here, and it's web-based, because it saves so much time in order from you having to download, get it into your editing software, render, and then re-upload. Takes forever. The fact that you can have it all here in Zencaster now is just it's like a thing of beauty, because that download and upload speeds, even with gigabit fiber internet speeds like I have, still takes forever for every single episode. So having it all in one in Zencaster makes a huge difference. So Zencaster is a big part of my process. It also hosts it. It also generates the AI clips, and I've talked about this before on multiple episodes, but it does more than. Let me go back to edit. It does more than just come up with the episode. I can add this portrait mode, go to content and clips, and actually just say yes, create me some portrait or vertical clips. And now when I go to apply and edit out these renders, it's going to have all the captions and the titles done, where I can actually go and review the clips later and then post them individually, one at a time, or schedule them, or put them in the queue to just post as they drip out. So huge part of the whole process. For not only production, but part of distribution, right? Because then once it hits that RSS feed, it gets published to all the podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It goes to YouTube. It used to have to go through Zapier, but now Zencaster publishes natively to YouTube through the API. It's fantastic. And then the RSS you can use to drive to WordPress sites or a podcast site. You noticed I have the AI-driven marketer, where as soon as it gets published to the host, it just pulls the episode with the art and the video so you can watch it here. I don't build this page. This page just gets generated automatically. Shoot, if you go to my other website, to Danchez, not the /cal, but to my normal site, my blog is updated automatically with, it looks like I have a duplicate here. It's updated automatically with the audio. I can't get the video to go for some reason, but at least the audio and the show notes updates my WordPress site, so that I don't have to update it in two places. It automatically updates both websites for me, which is huge. I mean, every time you don't have to update another thing time saved and more value added across your websites, across your social platforms. Again, it creates those AI clips, and then with one click, you can like edit, archive, or just auto post to 6 different social platforms. Like it may, of course, the TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts, but all the other platforms are becoming very short form video focused as well. So it also posts to LinkedIn, Facebook, and X. Which is great. So you can, with one episode, you're hitting all the different social platforms with clips of the podcast. Now, the part that I'm really excited about is all the other stuff, because Zencastr has been automating a lot of this for me since December, and even better now since you can edit it in Zencastr. But the part that I'm excited about is I built a automation sequence that uses just good marketing automation and AI to come up with all the other stuff that needs to happen, which is mainly following up with the guests, which even I'm bad at. Like I've been a guest on probably 30 plus episodes. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times the podcast I was a guest on has emailed me when the episode's gone live, which I'd love. I promote them all the time. I'd love to get those published on my own LinkedIn feed where I have 25,000 followers, and they don't email me just to tell me the episode's gone live. It's sad, but I've done the same thing, because even just getting it to the finish line of like scheduling it to publish, you're like, oh my gosh, you're already on to the next podcast episode. So following up with the guest is huge, because it's a great way to grow an audience for a podcast and get more distribution for all your social content. So it's like, come on. So what I've done is I've built an automated sequence that not only thanks the guest and emails you the show notes to put into Zencastr, but also follows up with them once it goes live. Because chances are, once you've actually have edited or finished recording the episode, you know when this is going to go live. You're going to be publishing it or scheduling it soon. So you just entered that same date here, and then just standard marketing automation waits for that date. And then the cool part is it takes, if I could find it here, there we go. This is the form I and my clients now fill out afterwards with the guest email and their phone number, episode title, which is usually already pre-populated because my showrunner already figured that out, right? But also the main thing is this episode transcript, maybe an episode thumbnail. Sometimes I do this ahead of time, or sometimes this is done afterwards. And then an option to send a newsletter out afterwards, and of course, a publication date or whenever it's going out. With this information, we can automate the rest of the guest follow-up process. So let's take a look at that. See here, we have a marketing automation. If you're not used to looking at marketing automation, this is a pretty typical like drag and drop automation builder where you can have a trigger. Again, here's my form submitted, and then starts doing the typical things. Wait 60 minutes, send a text to the guest, thanking them about the episode, right? And it inserts the when they can expect for it to go live. Great way to follow up with guests on a text message basis rather than an email basis, because they're more likely to get it, see it, and then engage with you and maybe even share the episode afterwards. So, and then it waits, right? And while it waits, it actually, in this case, if I selected this, send it to a newsletter, because not every episode needs to be sent to a newsletter, but a lot of mine I'd like to. It actually goes through the work of using AI in the workflow. This is the part that hardly anybody thinks about, hardly anybody leverages AI for. This is very different than working with ChatGPT, but those same prompting skills work here. I actually use it to ping OpenAI with this prompt as this sequence is triggered. And the prompt looks like: you are an expert copywriter who specializes in making fun and engaging content for insert value proposition to the podcast, right? Your current position. And I just insert a bunch of dynamic fields from the guest that the guest has given me, or from just the whole account has these custom values that you can fill in, so that if you need to change it, all the marketing automation you have linked to that podcast name or the value proposition of your show is injected and updated on the go. It goes through this long prompt to essentially make the body of the newsletter. It references the podcast transcript, which is what we uploaded on the form. It references an example of what the newsletter should look like. It references a style guide of how to write like myself, since I'm the one sending the newsletter, right? And these are all the processes I would have done naturally. It even writes an intro for it so that I can put the intro in the top of the newsletter, and then the graphic, and then the body of the newsletter. And I'll probably come up with more stuff to stick in the newsletter from different parts of the episode to make it a full-fledged newsletter. But I'm keeping it simple to start, because you got to start somewhere and then build on it later. Otherwise, you're taking too much time to build the perfect thing that you never launch, right? So it goes through and does some work of moving data around from the feedback it gets from OpenAI to custom values, so I can send it as a newsletter a little later on down in the sequence. And then it waits for a bit before actually texting the guest based on where they listen to podcasts. So if they listen to Apple Podcasts and they get a text that sends them a link to the Apple Podcast, right? Because if they're pulling this open on their phone, then it's going to take them right to their Apple Podcast app, or right to the Spotify app, or right to the YouTube app if that's where they listen to podcasts. Or if they said other on the form, then it sends them to the website where the most recent episode is pulled up and just for them. And then it waits 4 hours before sending them all the assets later on. And that's kind of the guest sequence, right? Because you want to text the guest when the episode goes live and be like, hey, your episode's live. Check it out here, right? If they actually get it on a text message, they're likely to open it. They're likely to click the link to open it up where they subscribe, probably listen to the episode, maybe even give it a rating or subscribe themselves, right? That could be a new subscriber for you. But you want them to get excited about it, and they're going to be more excited about it if they can go and interact with it where they subscribe. So later it sends a promotional assets of all the different like tweets and different things they can use. And then it sends out the newsletter. The newsletter to me is the most exciting part because, again, I'm horrible at sending out my own newsletter. I probably haven't emailed my newsletter out to my list of 700 of you for 3 months. It's just because it's so many steps. I'm finally automating it so that it sends out a really cool looking one. And you can see it automated here where it comes up with the intro paragraph in one prompt, injects it here, injects the image for the episode in between, and then the body right here. And this is where I'm currently at, where I feel like it's good enough content that it does a great job of summarizing, giving some of the key points of the guest, writing it as me, but without saying, hey, I'm Dan Sanchez here, because that's redundant. The email came from Dan Sanchez. I need to add some links to be like, hey, listen to the full episode, and then to like Apple, YouTube, Spotify, or the website down below so that they can actually listen to the episode. It even links to the episode automatically, I think. Yeah. Okay, I went to the website. It really needs to go to the episode, but progress before perfection, right? I'm just excited about this because now with every single one podcast that I produce, I'm going to be able to get a newsletter out of it and actually update the email list, which means more people will listen to the show and round this whole thing goes. So that's what I've been working on. I'm moving essentially from a marketing consultant and podcaster and like AI junkie to actually starting, I guess what you could call an AI agency, an AI podcast agency is kind of like the next step that I'm taking. With everything that I've learned, I can now produce a podcast for way less because there are still a few pieces that you could outsource because AI can't do it all, like actually going through those clips, selecting them, actually making the few edits that need to be made to a show. As much as Zencastr has automated the process, there's still some editing that needs to happen here. And then making sure it's all posted to the right place at the right time. Also coming up with that one graphic is something that you can't quite automate graphic design. It's so close. I'm so close to being able to automate that too, but not yet. That one piece that we saw here, like this piece, that someone still has to, even with using AI, like I created this image in Midjourney and then I brought it into Photoshop and I even used the AI tool in Photoshop to make it. It's still not quite to the point where you can fully automate a graphic like this. It's getting closer though, and it's faster with AI, but still not fully automatable like coming up with this newsletter is. And of course, this is the worst that it's going to be. It's only going to get better from here, and that's the most exciting part as the AI, the ChatGPT gets better or Claude gets better or whatever, as the automation can tap into more different apps. All of this is going to get easier. It's going to get better. But the ones who are on the forefront of this are going to be able to accelerate past the ones who are still doing all of this manually, because you're going to be able to come up with more and better content faster because you could spend way less time doing all the little baby steps of getting this content out there and way more time thinking about how to come up with original ideas that are actually worth spreading in the first place. The problem is we're all stuck in the hamster wheel of this instead of spending almost all of our time thinking about just this one recording and how to make it the best possible thing ever. Coming up with better ideas, spending more time thinking, doing more time learning so that we have better ideas to share, more time experimenting so we have something worth sharing. That's why I'm heading in this AI like agency direction, because I think a lot of it is automating it for people, but also spending more time coaching people on how to come up with original points of view that are worth sharing that can transform other people's, transform the industries they're working in. So that's kind of where I'm at. Hopefully you've enjoyed this behind the scenes. It's kind of hodgepodgey as I'm going from tab to tab on my desktop here, but hopefully it was insightful to a few of you to get into my head as far as what I'm working on, how I'm thinking about it, and how I'm approaching it for myself as as a solopreneur and marketing consultant. So stay tuned for the next episode where I'm going to be diving in with more guests in how they use it, so I could even use my learnings from them to better improve this process. And I'll be giving some updates on this podcast agency thing that I'm working on real soon.